Nowadays, an A380 lands or takes off around the world every 7 minutes. These giants transport more than 1 million people a month. The machine seems to be selling itself. Buyers are lining up and leaving with a smile. But Airbus continues to test and implement more and more new systems on this aircraft. The fuselage of this giant consists of 3 huge sections: a nose, tail, and middle. It is also called the center section. All of them are manufactured here in a huge special hangar near Hamburg. A lot of time and thought went into selecting the location. On the one hand, there had to be an airport nearby, as many components arrive here by plane. On the other hand, the presence of a navigable river was necessary in order to— mind you, why a future flying monster needs a river, you will find out a little later. As a result, the plant was built on the banks of the Elbe. The fact that it flows into the Atlantic Ocean played a decisive role in the choice of location. To accommodate more passengers on the plane, Airbus designers decided to make it a full 2-story plane and not with a hump like on Boeing's, for example. This is where the 8 in A380 comes from. This figure somewhat resembles the cross-section of an airplane fuselage. Also in the East, it is believed that the number 8 brings good luck. And the first customer of these giants here was actually Singapore Airlines. The fuselage sections are assembled on huge slipways. They're somewhat reminiscent of scaffolding. The parts of the casing are thoroughly inspected, checked, then technological hooks are screwed onto them, which are then used so a crane can lift the parts. Afterwards, individual segments are assembled on the slipway to form a finished part of the fuselage. It all looks like a huge 3D puzzle. In just one day, the body of the future section appears from a dozen pieces. There are 6 assembly slipways in this hangar. The section simply transfers from one to another, gradually drowning more and more in wires, cables, lines, hoses, pipes, tubes, air supply systems, and internal lining. Basically, what you have here is a giant conveyor belt where a section spends several days at each stage. Besides, according to developers, the trickiest part in creating the aircraft is the issue of reducing its weight. This monster is so huge that its own projected weight could have prevented it from flying. This problem was solved not only thanks to fiberglass, but also augmented aluminum alloy. As a result, only 40% of the center section consists of volatile metals, while the rest is made up of composites. Every square centimeter of this aircraft has been planned down to the tiniest detail. The thermal insulation material, for example, arrives in segmented pieces based on special templates. Even if the worker wanted to, he wouldn't be able to attach the wrong segment to the casing. It simply wouldn't slot in with the others. So this shirt will fit our monster like a glove. One A380 has 530 kilometers of wires. In the cockpit alone, there are about 10,000 of them and about 40,000 of their various connections. They are everywhere. They weave through the entire plane from nose to tail. Every second, huge amounts of information and hundreds of volts must be transmitted through them. These are like the nerve endings of our monster. By the way, main connection lines are duplicated 3 times. If a short circuit occurs in the main line, the backup will cover it. Should the second fail, the third will take its place. And that means that mainline wires have to be fitted 4 times over. All this in conditions of extremely limited space and severe time pressure. To get to any given connection, workers sometimes have to use rather exotic tools. A dentist mirror, for example. But to be fair, this version's a little bigger. Fitting the electrics is the most difficult stage of equipping this section, which is why it spends the most time on this slipway. The huge structure is then transported further. As a result, absolutely everything is installed in the sections except the inner lining. After all systems have been checked tenfold, along with wires, pipe connections have been tested, only after this are the ends of the huge sections covered with fabric and the huge components of the aircraft rolled out of the hangar onto the pier. And here it becomes clear why the flying monster needs a river. The sections of the aircraft are so huge that there's no other way to deliver them to their place of final assembly other than by water. Huge fragments are loaded onto one of 3 River Sea-class ships specially commissioned for the A380. And so that onlookers have no doubt about their grand purpose, the side of each barge proudly boasts this inscription. Once again, due to the huge size and the high fragility of the sections, they did not even try to build a crane in this transshipment port. The parts of the future aircraft move inside the ship themselves, and to do this, the stern of the ship simply tilts down and the pier sags towards it, like a huge elevator. And this is a very important quality in conditions of limited loading dock space. The platform drives under the section, lifts it, carries it into the hold, and then places it there and moves out again. The whole operation takes about 15 minutes. And the most amazing thing is that the driver of this miracle car, there he is. Yeah, he doesn't even sit in the cabin but walks next to it and looks to see if everything is okay. A huge trolley that he controls using a remote. In just a few days, this huge ship with parts of the fuselage inside will be in Bordeaux, France. At the seaport of Pauillac, the sections will be loaded onto one of 2 river barges and sent up the Garonne. 100 kilometers of canals, sluices, and overhanging ancient bridges. In some places, the distance from the top of the section to the bridge truss is only 20 centimeters. However, never in the entire history of the A380 have any emergency incidents occurred with the fuselage and sections on the road. In the river port of Langon, the aircraft parts are again loaded onto road trains, and now they have to travel another 240 kilometers on the road to Toulouse, to the final assembly site. The path of our monster's components runs through small French towns. To minimize inconvenience to residents, the convoy of 6 huge trailers and 30 escort vehicles moves only at night. During the day, this huge convoy, stretching several kilometers, rests in specially constructed parking lots. But once darkness descends, everything here begins to move again.
Okay, we'll do it as we always do. The weather conditions today are good. The road is dry. Visibility is excellent. Arno, you're going to go in the front. Don't forget to remove the barriers in the cities. Speed is 15 to 25 kilometers per hour, no more. Good luck, everybody.
Each of them knows what and when to do something like the back of their hand. The drivers never change their order in the convoy. The trailer with the right wing of the plane always comes first. That's just how it came about. When the A380 parts were transported for the first time, that was the order. And since then, there have been no incidents, and they decided to leave this order for luck. The route along which the Airbus night convoy moves is closed off. A police car, technical service vehicles, and a motorcycle escort are up ahead. In France, they don't even escort the president's limousine. About 40 minutes before the convoy passes through any city, the support group walking in front prepares the path, removing any interfering cars and sweeping the road clear. There shouldn't be any bumps whatsoever. Then they unscrew the posts separating the roadway from the pavement, and all this is done surprisingly calmly and, of course, politely.
All right, and there we go. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. While passing through the city, the convoy's speed is reduced to 5 to 7 kilometers per hour. Huge sections of the fuselage literally hang over old French houses. After all, they're at least twice as tall as them. And in some places, the distance from the load to the wall is reduced to several centimeters. Here, nothing less than pinpoint precision is required from the heavy-duty truck drivers. Always at the same time, somewhere around 2 a.m., the convoy enters the territory of the A380 assembly site near Toulouse.